But yeah, we're going to jump into Eternals here and talk about it. This film here from Chloé Zhao, dealing with these Eternals they've been around on Earth for 7,000 years and are reawakened to stop the Deviants from attacking Earth and possibly also bring about a certain thing that we don't want to spoil. So let's get into first the overall thoughts here. Let's start with you, Michael, as we usually do on these reviews. What did you feel about the overall, or what's your overall feeling rather about Eternals now with a little bit of time since you saw it last week?
Well, it's going to be interesting because based on some of the reviews that I've seen coming out, I think I may be more in the minority on this one. We'll see how it goes, but I can say, so Johnny did take me to the premiere. We had a lovely time. We walked the carpet, we sat down, and about 20 or 30 minutes in, I've seen enough movies with Johnny that I can sort of feel his energy on, and he could do the same for me. And I kind of had a moment where I was like, I'm liking this a lot more than I think John is. Like,
we have not discussed this, by the way. We have not discussed this.
I am really liking this more. Like, I'm leaning forward in my seat and doing it, and John's just kind of still watching. So I was very invested right away. I very much enjoyed the movie. I recognize it is very different for a Marvel movie. This is Jack Kirby, kind of diving into the Jack Kirby of it all, is already like you're getting into the weirder part of the Marvel universe. And this is sort of Jack Kirby through a Chloé Zhao filter, which kind of makes it even weirder. So this is not the typical, here's the origin story, here's who the hero is, here's how they step in their powers, here's the first bad guy they fight, which is sort of the template for a lot of the Marvel origin stories. This is a very, very different thing. That does definitely have its flaws. Like, I don't think it's a perfect movie. I have some issues, and when we do a spoiler review, I'll be happy to dive into some of those issues. But my overall experience was, I thought that they did a really great job of establishing who these characters were really quickly. I was very immediately invested in them, and I really enjoyed that Marvel is getting kind of weird. Like, it was getting weird in some shit, and I was there for it. I was really excited by it. I was really excited about the direction that this may spin the Marvel universe into. So I was very into it. I liked it a lot. But then in speaking with Johnny a little bit and speaking with Shannon a little bit and seeing some of the reviews that have been coming out, I know that that is not how everybody feels about it. So let me ask you two, what did you think of the Eternals?
Shannon?
So I'm probably going to be someplace in between Vogel and John on this. Part of being friends with John is you do get to know his body language. And granted, like, John, he had driven up to LA to do the premiere. He drove back to San Diego.
I like that this has become a spoiler review of how John watches a movie. Welcome to the spoiler review of how the Outlaw watches a movie.
I'd like to say, I think I've gotten so much better than I used to be. So, but go ahead.
Oh, this is not a criticism.
You're way better than you used to be. This is
not
fine.
a criticism. So John drove to and from San Diego twice in about 36 hours.
Yeah.
And so as John and I are watching the movie, knowing what John thought about it going into it, as I'm watching it, and I'm interested, but right off the bat, it's like, yeah, this is very different. This is a very different type of movie, and it's the type of thing you remove the Marvel references and you don't even know that it's a Marvel movie. I mean, it's that kind of unique. Judging from John's body language, I was like, "Ooh, John's getting bored." But also, I'm leaving the door open. Like, John had 2 very busy days where he did a lot of driving. So I was kind of leaving the door open for that. But about midway through Act 2, I did start to look at my watch. And it's like, ooh, we've got, because this is a 2-hour and 40-minute movie.
2-hour and 40-minute movie. Yep.
The first time I checked my watch, we were about 45 minutes in. And I was like, oh my God, there's another feature-length movie amount of time before we get all the way through this. The performances across the board are really, really good. Like, there are some fantastic performances. There's one performer in particular who I don't think stuck the landing on everything. And when we do our spoiler review, we'll chat about that. Part of Marvel being a victim of its own success is, as you're watching a movie, you're watching it for the story, but at the same time, your brain starts to go like, how is this going to affect everything else? Because they're telling this gigantic interconnected story. And that's where like my brain started to wander, because it was like, how are they going to connect this to everything else? Like, this is, they're opening this very large unexplored corner of the Marvel universe. By the end, like I certainly enjoyed it, but I was left with more questions than answers. But I do look forward to seeing it again. I mean, sometimes, you do need to see a movie twice to really kind of digest everything that's presented to you. I've been reading a lot about people who watched Dune a second time, who were not that big on it the first time, but they really liked it the second time. And also folks saying watching it at home was actually better, because some of the stimuli that you're given, it's just it can be overpowering. That being said, Eternals is a beautifully shot movie. I mean, it is a gorgeous looking movie. I'll be curious before we do our spoiler review. I imagine we'll all see it again, so we can, go at it with fresh eyes. John, maybe not. He saw it twice in 24 hours.
Yeah, I've got the memory pretty. I think I've seen what I need to see. No, look, I'll say this. I went in so excited for this movie because you've got Chloé Zhao as the director, as Oscar-winning director, Asian voice here behind the camera. You've got one of the most diverse casts the MCU is ever going to do. And when Tessa Thompson was interviewed about it a couple of years ago and said, Kevin Feige assured me we are going to be way more diverse in Phase 4, I was excited for this. I mean, you've got a great list of actors. Someone tried to compare it to the first X-Men. I was like, get the fuck out of here. These across the board are way more talented actors as a whole than the actors you had at X-Men. They're good actors, but it's once you get past Hugh Jackman and maybe Patrick Stewart, and it starts to kind of be the
Ian McKellen.
Then it starts to become the law of diminishing returns. Because I tell you this, but you can't do that with Eternals. Everybody is great in the movie in terms of acting. Now, are the roles fleshed out? No, and that's where the problem is for me. There are 2 or 3 roles that are really fleshed out. You get to know them, you get to understand what's going on, a relationship between 2 of the characters that's really explored. But everyone else gets introduced, and then poof, they're gone for large stretches of the movie. And the movie expects you to go, remember when they were like cool with each other 6 hours ago? Hey, we're back now. And now let's just jump into this. And I think that's where the movie really suffers, is they don't flesh out enough of these characters. Introducing 11 characters if you include Dane Whitman, is a lot to ask of a movie. And it was too much, I think, for this movie. And it banked too much on the casting and the possible chemistry of the characters in order to overcome that or paper over the cracks of that situation. I agree with Michael. This thing is way out there. But you know what? So is Loki. So is Doctor Strange. And they still managed to have a cohesive story that's connectable and works. The problem I feel is this film is a bit cold, a bit distant, and I wanted to feel emotion for these people, and I couldn't. I just was more observing it, which is why I fell asleep for 5 minutes at the premiere. I kind of like settled back in when I watched it again with Shannon in the second half of the movie. I did enjoy the first half a lot more a second time, for sure, because I didn't have to worry about who's being introduced when. But the second half still doesn't work for me because I think they have almost zero chemistry as a team. Individually, like 1-on-2, 1-on-1, great chemistry. Overall as a team, no chemistry at all. And if they've been doing this multiple times, or if they've been doing this a few times, then you're supposed to and I mean that in the film, if they're coming together to fight a few times, by the time they get to the final, you expect them to have some good chemistry, and they don't. Do they have standout individual moments within the battles? Absolutely, but overall, it doesn't really work for me. And I think some of the characters and I think some of the things that they decided to do that were supposedly these big, powerful moments, there's no fleshing out of the moment, and then we just move the F on. And I'm like, wait, what? You've got to explain how this happened, explore this situation. Then when you have that moment, it feels even more powerful. It's not just, let's throw this in and get the fuck out of here. Like, it just drove me nuts on some of these decisions that they made overall. So, but real quick, but Shannon's right. Visually, incredibly gorgeous. Chloé Zhao knows exactly what to do with the camera, knows exactly how to direct a lush, beautiful, gorgeous film. The problem is the story. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I actually agree with some of what John says. I disagree with some of what John says. Maybe he fell asleep for some of the parts that I was enjoying. So I'm not quite sure when he was asleep.
If it was exciting, I stayed awake. Anyway, go ahead.
But no, I actually, and I think everyone's gonna have different opinions on this. Like I whether it was the casting, whether it was something that I picked up on or was feeling that he wasn't feeling, like I very much liked these characters right off the bat, and I think that. From a writing standpoint, I think there's always a desire to want to be able to spend more time and get to know everybody. And look, if you're going to do a movie where even if it's 2 hours and 40 minutes, you've got 11 characters, you don't have time to spend on every character. That's just that's the game that you chose. And maybe that was a bad game to choose. Maybe that's going to be Marvel's decision at the end of the day after this. But I thought, given the amount of time they had, I think they did a great job of very succinctly and very efficiently letting you know who each character was and what they were about, so that when we do catch back up with them later on and see where they are, at a later date in time, I picked right back up on their stories. Like, I very much enjoyed you were this and then you became this, and you were this and you went here. Like, I thought that all tracked for me. I really enjoyed it. I do think John's right that there is a bit of a coldness to the movie that I attributed to these are Eternals. They've been around for thousands of years. Like, you're kind of playing this godlike thing. You're not Tony Stark fucking around, or even Cap, who's been frozen in ice for 70 years. Like, you're this very alien being, and I think
Michael, but they're making jokes like human beings, and they're being sarcastic like human beings. So you can't say, "Oh, you're godlike," and then you don't, but you're acting like a human being, and therefore, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
You can, because they are in fact thousands of years old. Like, when you're like just because you're thousands of years old doesn't mean you don't crack jokes. I'm not saying that it was the right choice. I'm not saying it fully worked, but I'm saying clearly what they were going for is, we are these alien beings who are thousands of years old. Like, they were playing to that, which gave them all this sort of like little bit of a distance. Was it the right choice or the wrong choice? Everybody can make that choice on their own when they see it, but it was clearly a choice. I also think that John is right in that I do think that a couple of my story issues that we'll get into at a later date do sort of stem around, you had some big swings that you wanted to take, you had some big character moments, and a thing happens, and I don't know that it's fully backed up. But again, this is me getting into the nitty-gritty of what I didn't like. My overall experience of this movie was kind of a little bit giddy, and I think that some people had that experience, some people didn't, but I think that for me, seeing something that was so ballsy out there, that was so different than everything else, and kind of to Shannon's point, me getting excited about, holy shit, you just went for it in this movie. And how does this affect the rest of the Marvel universe going forward? Like, there's some pretty big things by the end of this movie that you're like, yeah, you can't ignore that on the next Disney Plus series. That's going to have to be a thing. And so I'm just really curious to see how they carry that forward. And if any other studio is doing it, I'd be like, there's no way. But given how far Marvel's brought us so far, I'm like, all right, well, let's see. And then without getting into any details on it, both of the end credit sequences are equally as balls out crazy, where you're just like, oh shit. Like, you think about where the Marvel Universe Phase 4 has gone so far, and we know that the multiverse is wide open thanks to Loki and What If. And if you watch the end credits to Shang-Chi, we know that, there's like a lot going on with the 10 rings that we weren't quite expecting. And what does all that mean? And then you get to the end of Eternals and you're like, holy shit, man, you are not slowing down here. Like, there is a lot going on. Never mind the Sinister Six coming back in No Way Home. Like, there is a lot going on. And the Eternals end credit sequence didn't close any loops. It just opened some big fucking loops in other directions.
And I'll add two things and a question. A good thing that you've probably seen in the trailers are the speedster effects for Makari. So a character that I knew very little about going into the movie, they have set the speedster effect bar very high for The Flash next November, because she looks awesome. I mean, the way they shot that, it was just so satisfying for me as an audience member. With Chloé Zhao, because I thought Nomadland was fantastic.
Yeah.
Not every director and editor is suited for comedy. And some of the humor does not land because I don't think she knows how to shoot comedy well, because there is a difference. But that, again, that's my personal opinion. And I just lost my question. Doggone it. It was really good too.
Well, while you think about the question, let me jump in and be the counter to Mike in a positive way. As Mike kind of agreed with some of my points. I will agree with some of Michael's points as well that were positive about the movie. Just because I had some issues with the film doesn't mean I don't think it should exist or you shouldn't go see it. You should absolutely go see it. If you're a Marvel fan, you should absolutely go see it if you want to find out what's going on next in Phase 4. And they clearly announced they're going way the F on out there. If you thought what happened at the end of Loki was going out there, this is going way on out there for sure, through numerous centuries to go all the way back. Very interesting. But I think the film deserves a massive amount of credit, again, for this cast, for Salma Hayek, for Kumail Nanjiani, for Brian Tyree Henry, for Gemma Chan, for Angelina Jolie, for Liam McHugh, for Don Lee. So many people, even Harish Patel, who steals the damn movie, steals every scene he's in. It's so great to see so much representation on the screen. And, of course, Lauren Ridloff, as well as a deaf actress on the heels of Coda. It was great to see her kind of, step forward as another deaf actress getting an opportunity in a film to show what she can do. And she's fantastic. I mean, she has so many great emotional moments. And speaking of emotional moments, Angelina Jolie is incredible in this movie. She brings her Oscar-winning talent to these emotional moments, the struggles that she's going through in the film. It will blow you away that level of acting is occurring in a Marvel movie. That is reserved for like independent, small, angsty, awesome films that are Oscar nominated. What she's delivering in certain moments is some of the best stuff I've seen from her in quite some time. So I have positive things to say about the movie for sure, even though it maybe didn't 100% work for me. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Do you know, on the casting front, what I thought the best part was about that cast was that the whole diversity of the cast didn't feel... It felt like that's how things should always be.
Right, didn't feel forced.
It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel weird. It didn't feel like they were trying to tick a box. Like, you looked at this group of people that were so different in so many ways, and you just went... Yeah, that's what every super team should look like. Like, what are we even fighting and making a big deal about this for? Like, this is what I want. Like, this is what I want to see. Like, it was great. Yeah. Like, I really, really appreciated that about the movie a lot, is that it just made it feel so, duh. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way now, Michael. I've watched so many commercials, TV shows, movies now over the last 2 years. I'm like, and I see so many people of color. I'm like, we've always been there, trying to get these jobs. It's so great to finally see the cast directors go, oh yeah, maybe it's okay now to put people in. There's always been talented people of color who haven't got a shot, and to see them popping up in commercials all in interracial relationships, which was so taboo in the past, seeing so many people do this, I think it's fantastic. But I'm still a little pissed about it, but I think it's fantastic. And this movie is another example of how simple and organic and fluid it is, and how it's not a big deal, yet it is a big deal at the same time. So, yeah. Shannon, did you think of your question? Oh, sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead, Shannon.
Well, I was going to say, the release order, because of COVID, like the release order got, shuffled a little bit. Yeah. I do think it's fortunate that their first two, after Black Widow, their first two swings with new characters, or with new titles at least, are going to be followed by the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch of Spidey 3, Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4, Black Panther 2, and Captain Marvel 2. That don't forget Hawkeye. Is the time. Well, yeah, but I'm talking on the big screen now.
It's familiar. Okay, yeah.
No, I'm talking big screen because that's where the big money. Oh.
All right.
But knowing how it concludes, do you guys see a reality where this expanding Marvel Cinematic Universe collapses under its own weight? Okay, I think John is telling us his thoughts
I have the same answer to this every time we bring up this question, but John, go first.
Just real quick, yes, because of what I saw in Eternals. So that's what I can say. Yes, because of what I saw in Eternals. And it's always the fear. But there are a lot of talented people who want a shot at Marvel movies. So I think that's going to keep it afloat for a very, very long time before it falls on itself. Mike?
Yeah, as I always say, yes, the Marvel universe will eventually collapse in and like it's going to happen eventually. I don't actually think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think they've got some pretty solid plans.
Yeah.
And I think that even if Eternals does ultimately turn out to be seen as not the best thing that Marvel has done, they've also had some pretty not best things in the past as well, and they've worked with it, and they've got plans. They've got the movies lined up. They know where they're going with this stuff, so it's not like they're putting something out there and they're like, oh shit, how do we make sense of this? Like between the multiverse and Shang-Chi and everything they're doing in Eternals, like they clearly have a direction. Yeah. At some point down the road, whether it's 10 years, 20 years, whatever, they're going to have to collapse / reboot / start over because they're just gonna have to. Nothing can go on forever. Yeah. That's just not how the world works. But I don't think that anything in Eternals made me go, oh, I think they've overstepped now. They've really stepped into it. Like, I think they still are on pretty solid footing as far as knowing where they want to go. And as we talked about before, they're at a place right now where they can take some big swings. Because even if they lose some of their audience or people are like, I don't know if I'm on board anymore, they've got an entire wing of mutants that they're just waiting to bring in that everyone's going to be like, oh, I'm back in. Yeah, there's Storm. There's Wolverine. There's Cyclops. Like, they're going to come back. So I think they know what they're doing.
If they knock X-Men and Fantastic Four out of the park, that's going to give them at least 10 years of life extra. 10 years of extra life for sure, if not more. For God's sake. So, all right. Any final words? You think of your question yet, Shannon, or no?
No. Well, no, that was the question.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go.
I just really like when the Geek Buddies have like a 3-way split. It's like a Geek Buddies Goldilocks rating. It's like, well, I liked it. I didn't like it. I'm in the middle. Like it's a good way to go.
Wait, like Goldilocks in this. In this scenario,
you're one of the 3 bears. We're all one of the 3 bears.
No, I guess in this scenario, you're the mother bear.
Oh boy.
Oh, but I guess that makes me the baby bear because then John would be the papa bear.
Goddamn right. You get Just call me a daddy. All right. Anyway, let's let's get on out of here. We hope you enjoyed our non-spoiler review. And look, we couldn't get into the concepts, we couldn't get into some of the symbolism, we couldn't get it without spoiling anything. So we will definitely have a spoiler review where we talk about everything that was presented. So don't ding us for that because that's stuff we couldn't quite jump into because it will lead into spoiler territory. And it's better that we don't rather than taking that chance. And it's less editing for me, God damn it. All right, Shannon, what do we got to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies. On Instagram, at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, Papa Bear, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey.
And listen, if you like light years or tigers or Papa Bears like Rocha, we got something for everybody here at the Geek Buddies. And we would love to keep doing what we're doing, and we need your help to do it. So if you could smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, definitely leave us some comments. Let us know what you thought of this episode. What are you excited about Eternals? What are you worried about Eternals? What did you think of the trailers? You excited about Hayden Christensen? Are you excited about Brendan Fraser? Like, give us all of your thoughts on that. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere where podcasts are available, take a minute right now. If you're out on your walk, out on a jog, whatever you're doing, give us some stars, leave a quick comment, helps us go up in the rankings for more people to find us. And as always, the best thing that you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, and let everybody know that if they want to have the most exciting and thrilling and red t-shirted geeky content around, Geek Buddies is the place to do it.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching or listening to us. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here from the
Geek
Buddies.